So you want a bike from the last 25 years, you want it to be reliable, you want it to be good, you want it to be fun, and best of all, you want it to be cheap. Well, I've got you covered today with my top 10 picks of the finest used motorcycles of the last 25 years. Did a little bit of research on this. Of course, this can include a little bit of Yamaha bias because everything includes bias nowadays. But let's get into my top 10 picks of the best motorcycles from the last 25 years. Let's do it. First up on the list is the Yamaha FZ6. Those who know about this bike. Is this the original Phaser / MT motorcycle? These are fantastic bikes. They're basically a detuned R6 with a little bit more upright ergonomics, and you can find them pretty cheap and in pretty good condition anywhere that you live. The best part about these bikes is that because they're a detuned R6 engine and they're Japanese, they're basically bulletproof, which is a theme you're going to see in today's video of these motorcycles being pretty much bulletproof. So what are we working with? Like I said, slightly upright ergonomics. You can see over here in the photo, bike's looking like it's going to sit a little bit more upright. 599cc inline four, making about 110 horsepower and about 52 foot-pounds of torque or thereabouts. Great engine, super reliable, super turnkey. You'll see these turning mile after mile. You can set these up as a bit of a sport touring thing as well. Put a taller windshield on it, put some bags on it, do whatever you want with this bike. This can be your weekend carving toy as well. Take it out to a track day, why not? The FZ6 is down to party, and I fully approve of it as one of our top 10 picks of used bikes for the last 25 years. But the next one might surprise you a little bit. So for whatever reason, people think that I don't know that this motorcycle exists, and now I purposefully don't talk about it to kind of keep the meme alive. But for today's video, I did need to mention and shout out the Kawasaki Concours 14. The Concours 14 is a great motorcycle. Why is it a great motorcycle? Well, it's because it's basically like an old school H2SX. It's that big, fast, open class sport touring thing, super comfortable, crush miles on this thing. It's kind of like an even more comfortable Hayabusa. Features the 1352cc inline 4 engine in the post-2007 configuration. But if you get it, I think pre-2006, it had the 1000cc Ninja engine. Some guys prefer that one. I prefer the extra cubes, and I'd want the big torque out of that Concours 14. Making about 155 horsepower, which is definitely nothing to scoff at. This bike can definitely get up and boogie. But yeah, the Concours 14, it's just this awesome dad bike, and if you're into like a big power touring bike, but you don't want to spend a bunch of money on a Goldwing or a Harley or any of that kind of crap, you can find a Concours 14 for like 4 or 5 grand that's gonna run perfectly well, and you'll be able to use it and really enjoy it. That's the thing about some of these bikes nowadays, man. There's so many gems out there for great prices that you don't really need to buy a brand new motorcycle unless you really just want the panache of a brand new bike. Although we ran a survey not too long ago on this channel and found out that most people own bikes that were produced in the last 2 to 3 years, because I think there's a big stigma in their brains about the reliability of some of these older machines. But if you have a little bit of mechanical know-how, you can get a Concours 14 or an FZ6 on the road, piling mile after mile after mile. I've seen FZ6s and Concourses with upwards of 40, 50, 60,000 miles, no problem whatsoever, still churning along and ticking away. That's one of the great things about early 2000s Japanese bikes. They will just simply run forever and keep putting a smile on your face. Let's check out the next bike on the list. If you find one of these for a decent price and you're in the market to buy motorcycles, don't even question it. Just freaking buy the thing. I promise you it's going to be worth it. It's the Honda RC51. The VTR 1000 technically is its name, I believe, but everyone just calls it the RC51. First of all, look at this thing. It's beautiful. I love the look of the RC51. This is Honda beating Ducati at Ducati's game in World Superbike. Why does this motorcycle exist? Well, first of all, Ducati was totally dominant in World Superbike in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and then Honda said, you know what, screw it, we're tired of losing, let's build a twin-cylinder V-twin superbike that can keep up with Ducati's 916, 996 platform motorcycles. So that's exactly what they did. So it features a 998cc 90-degree V-twin making 136 horsepower, and that is just so freaking cool for Honda to do. These bikes are fantastic. There was one for sale around my area not too long ago that had the limited edition Nicky Hayden livery on it as well. Super, super cool motorcycles. Go like stink. Handle amazing because that rigid aluminum twin spar frame that they had. It's a proper super bike, but fitted with a twin cylinder motor, which is really different than the stuff that the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers were making at the time. And look at stuff like the R1, the ZX10s, the ZX9s, all those sort of motorcycles that existed around the time. None of them were V-twins, and Honda only did that because they hated Ducati's guts and they wanted to beat them in racing. So if you find an RC51 and you find it for a decent price, I highly, highly recommend that you pick one up because it is a super cool factor motorcycle. Pull up to any bike night and those who know will give you so much respect for owning an RC51. Super cool machine. All right, next up is an absolute legend. It's the 2003 to 2006 ZX6R from Kawasaki. Why did I pick those specific years? Okay, first of all, that's the year where they had the Cheater 636 engine until they brought it back later on, I think in 2013. So this was the original 636 Cheater inline 4. And I think the body style in the 2003 to 2006 just has that classic squid energy. I think this motorcycle looks really cool, really looks of its time. And if you're into that sort of thing and you're kind of trying to pull on the nostalgia a little bit, 03 to 06 ZX6 looks super cool. These also make great stunt bikes too if you're into that sort of thing. They are a classic stunt bike build. People love doing that to these machines. And I just think it's an awesome motorcycle. Really powerful for what it is, makes a crap ton of horsepower. You can flash these things super easily. Not that complicated to work on either. The 2003 to 2006 ZX6R is a fantastic choice in my opinion, and you can't go wrong. Okay, next up is a bit of an oddball, but hear me out. It's the 2000 Suzuki Bandit 1200. I've talked about this motorcycle before, but I really think y'all need to hear me one more time about this because I don't think y'all heard me all the way in the back over there. Listen, the Bandit 1200 doesn't look like a lot on paper, right? Kind of has that Royal Enfield effect, if you know what I mean. But about 100 horsepower, 78 foot-pounds of torque, I believe, from an 1157cc inline 4, if I got those numbers right. Nah, who cares? It's from the Gixxer 1100. Y'all know the engine, whatever. Anyways, this thing rips wheelies like you wouldn't believe. It's this kind of big, beefy motorcycle, really like the Bandit 1200. It's this like almost universal classic inline 4 early 2000s motorcycle from Japan, but they're a classic for a good reason. The best part about these bikes is number one, they're half fared. So you get all the benefits of a naked bike from down low because you can easily access the head and work on it and all that good stuff. But the top half has wind protection and actual fairing, so it's a little bit more comfortable to ride on the daily. The Bandit 1200 is a sleeper hit, and you can find these for like $2,500 no matter where you live, sometimes even like $1,800, $2,000. Because nobody wants a 23-year-old Suzuki that doesn't really look like it can do much. But if you're a savvy motorcycle enthusiast, pick yourself up a Bandit 1200, you will not regret it. Okay, this next motorcycle has to be talked about. It's the Honda CBR 600 F4i. Specifically the F4i, and not just any Honda CBR 600. The F4i is specifically the one I want to shout out because it was kind of like the original somewhat upright, sporty, fully fared motorcycle. The spiritual successor to that bike is the CBR 650R that's being sold nowadays. So if you wanted a new version of that bike, you can pretty much get it. But I do think since these can be bought used, you can get really good deals on them. What makes this motorcycle so great? Well, it features the same mill from the CBR 600 race bike, so a 599cc inline 4, slightly detuned, making about 110 horsepower. But the thing about it is the ergonomics and the everyday usability of these bikes. They look really cool. They're the classic early 2000s look on a bike. And I just think that they are a fantastic choice for a dead reliable, super easy to work on, super simple motorcycle that's going to run probably forever until the heat death of the universe. First of all, it's a Japanese bike. Second of all, it's a Honda, so you know this thing's going to run for a really, really long time. You can't go wrong with the Honda F4i. If you can find one of those in decent nick, I highly recommend picking one of those up too. This next one is a bit of a cop-out, but I really couldn't make this list without mentioning it. I think the 2001 to 2005 Suzuki SV650 is a fantastic choice for just about anybody. Okay, first of all, at this point, if you don't know, the SV650 is just a god-tier motorcycle. It's great for beginners, great for intermediates, great for experts. You can do anything with it. Turn it into a race bike, turn it into a track bike, turn it into a scrambler, turn it into whatever you want. anything you can desire on an SV650 has probably been done and done pretty well. So that's a great starting point, great platform of a motorcycle. But you don't want to go with the 1999 to 2000 SV650 because those are carbureted. Look, having a carbed bike just simply sucks. You don't want to mess with that. You would much rather have a fuel-injected motorcycle, trust me. So start with the 2001 and go all the way up to a 2005 or 2006 SV650 and skip the ugly years for the Gladius. But if you're willing to put up with an ugly motorcycle, the Gladius is a really good buy too. Nobody is freaking buying those things. You can buy them for pennies on the dollar and you can just have yourself basically an SV650. It just looks a little bit different, but it's honestly not that big of a deal. The ugliness of the Gladius is massively overstated in the first place. So I think that a 2001 to 2005 or 6 SV650 is going to be a great choice. Now this next one might surprise you a little bit, but I think the 2013 plus Ninja 300 is actually a great choice for those of you looking for a fantastic entry-level motorcycle for pennies on the dollar. Why is that? Well, first of all, you don't want to go for a Ninja 250. Simply put, a Ninja 250 is just atrociously slow. There's nothing wrong with them. It's a perfectly fine motorcycle. You can have a ton of fun with the Ninja 250, but the Ninja 300 was the first kind of like, you know, seal-breaking motorcycle that allowed all the other manufacturers to jump in on the beginner bike craze. That's where bikes like the Yamaha R3, Ninja 400, KTM RC390, that's where they all started coming from, was when Kawasaki decided to play ball with the Honda CBR 300, and then everybody started bumping everything up back in the early 2010s, and then we're here today with the Ninja 400. But the thing is, the Ninja 300 is a really good motorcycle. There's nothing wrong with that bike, and it's gonna be fantastic for you to own and ride. The best part about it is because nobody really wants one because the Ninja 400 exists, you can go out and buy a Ninja 300 for pennies on the dollar, like I said. It still makes a great amount of power, still looks really good, and is still plenty modern for you to not have to worry about carburetors or anything silly like that. If you get a Ninja 300, you can get it for really cheap. I highly recommend it too. Last two bikes on the list. The first bike I wanted to talk about, I think it's pretty obvious, is the DRZ400. Do I really need to say more? I classified the DRZ400 recently as my top apex predator beginner bike. I really think that it is one of the best beginner bikes you could possibly get, given everything you can do with it and the fact that you can keep it forever. A DRZ400 is going to be one of the best buys you can possibly get for your kind of last 25 years of motorcycling. Features that lovable single cylinder. You can pop wheelies really easily on it, go crush some trails, go hang out, go hang out with the Supermoto boys in the parking lot. You can have a ton of fun with the DRZ400, so I really recommend one of those in the last 25 years as well. And the last bike on the list today, rounding it out, a little bit of that Yamaha bias, I think a 2013 plus Triumph Street Triple 675 is a fantastic motorcycle. Why the Street Triple and not the Daytona? Well, listen, if you're gonna get a Daytona, you gotta be about that life. You gotta be about that race bike life. You gotta be all about that super committed life. And I really think the Street Triple is generally a better all-around motorcycle. So the 2013 Plus is fantastic because all the electronics have been updated, makes a little bit more power, a couple refinements done to it, and it's just a killer bike on road, on track. Anything you want to do with that thing, it's going to be a ton of fun. So I think the Street Triple is a killer bike and a weapon of a bike you can enjoy for a long time. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up my top 10 used motorcycle picks of the last 25 years. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments if you have anything else you think of in the last 25 years that would be better than one of these bikes. And again, I wanted to keep it kind of like street bike oriented, a little bit of touring. Most kind of like people would ride these sort of things and not fall into like random race bikes and those sort of things. So thanks so much for watching the video today, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Man, this right here, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I didn't want to admit it, but it's the coolest thing ever. I mean, can you guys think of anything cooler than this thing right here? I can't.